The difference between us is that I can feel pain.
Sounds like a real boogeyman. 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you.
Not to mention the fact that you're talking to a dead guy.
There's someone else in the hotel with us. There's a crazy woman in one of the rooms.
It's got a death curse.
This isn't science. It's more like black magic.
Your specimen has been processed, and we are now ready to begin the test proper.
Hello, my Night Owl friends. I'm your host, Travis Wormwood. Got my co-host here, Dawson Trailer, and you are now inside of Pumpkin Hill Radio. We got a really good one for you today, folks. A lovely interview with Leslie and Stephen Shaw about their book titled Who They Are and What They're Up To. Yeah. You're going to hear that in just a second. Before then, we're just kind of
very interesting stories, very just first-hand accounts, and then they have like their own research they've done. Very interesting stuff pretty in line with like a lot of things we've talked about before too. Just like,
and it's always good to throw a new theory on the board.
Yeah.
Where I know personally, after listening, I'm going to pick up the book just to. I want to make sure I get through it. And
because I mean, they mentioned at the end that it's kind of just the first half of the book, but
yeah, we pretty much just talk about the first half.
Yeah, once you get there, it's like, well, I need to know what even can be in the second half.
Yeah,
like,
so
there's so much to this.
So that's coming up in a second. Before then, I just want to say welcome to Pumpkin Hill Radio to all our new listeners. I want to shout out Nandesukan at the end of August, beginning of September. That's our local convention in Colorado that we're going to be doing full press work on. Yes. And then what is it called? The Mad Monster Party Colorado. That's October 11th to the 13th. We're going to have a table there, a booth, and selling some of our wares and grabbing some on the boots on the ground type interviews. You know, so we're very excited for that.
Cool.
I think that's it. I think we're going to cut right into the interview.
Yeah, we got video on this one.
Well, great. Let's just get into it.
Cool.
Welcome to Pumpkin Hill Radio. I have Leslie and Stephen Shaw here. They're with their book, Dawson.
They got the book Who They Are and What They're Up To. Yeah, she's got it on the screen.
Yeah, and there it is. There it is. It looks beautiful. Where can people find that?
Very cool book.
It's on Amazon and Ingram Books.
Okay. Amazon primarily. Ingram is for bookstores.
Mostly bookstores use that.
Sure.
Cool.
And if you're on Instagram, people just look up like Leslie Shaw or we're friends. So if you go through my friends page, we can find each other. Yeah. But just I know all the links are right there too. So
our Instagram handle is at leslie.shaw.author. And I would like to send people there. We can never cover all of Stephen's family's experiences in any 1 hour, but I've put most of them there in these little mini series that I've made.
Yeah.
Nice.
So.
Sure.
Nice.
Well, do you want to just go over a little bit of your background first, and then we can dig into maybe some of I'd love to know about Stephen's family spirit. Actually, that's something that I'm very interested in. And maybe
okay.
Yeah.
Why don't you start, Doc?
Are we recording?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
okay.
We were gone.
Okay, good. All right. Just want to make sure. I was brought up in a post-war World War II a British family that moved to the United States in 1956, and I was told at a very young age that we had a family spirit guide called Old Glegley. Okay, that several people had met through about 4 generations of the family, starting from Germany, then to England, and then to California. And so I just accepted it as a young child. And sure enough, by about the age of 3, actually at the age of 3, I started being visited by this playful little entity that would visit me in the middle of the night and jump on my chest and my stomach. Invisible. I couldn't see them visually, but it was like a 2-footed being, like about the size of like a garden gnome or something like that.
Okay,
and would,
perfect.
This would like kind of play with me. And so, having grown up in a family, knowing we had a family spirit guide, aka like a protector, I just accepted it. So I was going through life like that, and by the way, I started out being a very sick child. I was very, very ill from day one, and I had severe tonsillitis and adenoiditis, and I finally had to have surgery when I turned 2 years old on July 28th, 1962, because I just was not a healthy individual at all. So anyway, so we fast forward to about
Well, actually, give them a little bit of background.
Background?
We kind of skipped the background.
Oh, background of me? Or
Yes, yes.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, I've been an acupuncturist. I was an acupuncturist for over 20 years, a state licensed
Cool.
acupuncturist,
Yeah.
Chinese medical doctor here in California. And I studied and taught Tai Chi for 23 years, amongst a couple other different martial arts like monkey kung fu and hapkido. But
so you've always felt pretty attracted to that side, that more
yes.
spiritual end of things, at least.
It seems like it was never like a weird stigmatized like thing in your mind. Like it's kind of just something you grew up with.
I always felt a connection to nature. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
You know, especially like, you know, that we're supposed to take care of the earth as an example, you know, which, you know, anyway, so. So yeah, I mean, I've been always attracted to that. So for me, for Chinese medicine, just kind of segued directly into my whole teaching of you know, Tai Chi and the whole philosophy, which are very, very similar. So for me, I came to Chinese medicine out of a strength, whereas sure enough, about 50% of the people I went to school with, about 50% of them were attracted to Chinese medicine because they've been healed by Chinese medicine. Okay, I didn't need to be healed by Chinese medicine. I was already doing the Taoist breathing and the Qi movement and all that kind of stuff. And so it was kind of interesting that I always like thought my spirit guide was kind of always had this voice in my head that would kind of guide me. That was just right there that I could rely upon this voice, this entity. So anyway, so going along life, you know, with the spirit guide thing. Now let me backtrack a little bit. You know, I was, of course, I was a cabinet maker when I was for many, many years with my dad, and I did 6 years in the military as a CB in the Navy from 80 to 86. So I've worn the white hats and the blue hats, as they would say, may say in life, you know. So I've been there, done a fair amount of traveling. So anyway, when I was 9 years old, I was sleeping in a bunk bed, and my brother, who's 6 years younger, was on the bottom of the bunk bed, and I was awakened by this very bizarre sound, and I knew it wasn't our dog, so I decided to investigate again in the middle of the night, like these things happen, right? So I'm creeping down the hallway. I was creeping down the hallway, and I just knew it was something weird I was going to see. I wasn't sure what it was going to be, and so my heart was pounding and my eyes were dilated, and I was scared. So I was in adrenal mode, and I'm about ready to turn the corner into the living room, and then I just black out.
Just as he's about to see what it is.
Yeah, it
gone.
zapped your mind right there.
And then the next thing I know, I'm back in bed, which is a few hours later. I was all nicely tucked back in, whatever, I just got back in bed somehow. And again, I just accepted it as some of the weirdisms of our family.
Yeah.
You know, you don't talk about this stuff with your friends or people at school. They either think that you're in a haunted house, or they think that either you're lying or that you have something wrong in your head.
Yeah, like when you're a kid, you try to conform so hard. So.
Right. You really want to be accepted.
I was playing the accordion, so I was always a little strange to start with. Right. So.
Do you think
I've been a lifelong music.
That thing that you were about to see before you kind of got put under somehow. Yeah. Do you think that was Oglegli, or was that some other?
I'm not really sure. Not really sure. It could have been. I don't know what that was for sure. But
we've tried to, use hypnosis to break through these blackout blocks in his memory.
We're getting a little closer, but we just haven't quite gotten there yet.
Sure. That regression can take years. I know. So then about by about the age of 11 or 12, I saw my first UFO. Okay. And it was a large, basically sphere, a large orange sphere that was going from south to north horizontally, outside. I looked outside the front door, which had a glass panel, and it was about 9:30 at night, and it was just moving at a nice little clip, and then it stopped a little bit, then it continued, and I was fascinated by it, and I was looking and says, that's not an airplane.
So I called Griffith Park Observatory the next day, and I asked them whether they'd seen anything. They said, young man, we don't have our telescopes pointed in that direction. So,
Sure.
it's just one of those things. And that's kind of when my curiosity about UFOs kind of started, about the age of 11 or 12.
Have you heard of, I mean, you've probably heard all these things, but the Henderson lights, or the
Henderson lights?
The Henderson lights. And then also something called yeah. And then there's the Hessdalen lights. That's over a valley in Norway. These are all described.
No, I haven't heard of that one.
Okay, yeah. So these are described as like floating orbs. Okay,
Yeah.
they've been seen as white, yellow, and red. So kind of
And
orange could fit in there, and green, sure. But they're appearing there in this. They're moving in this crazy erratic way. There were reports from all the way back from the 30s, 1930s, and then in the 80s it started getting like attention. And they built this thing called the Hessdalen Automatic Measurement Station in this valley in the
really?
80s
They're trying to
record the
assess
lights.
them, huh? Yeah.
And they have not gathered any conclusions still to this day. And there is reports up to this year of them seeing.
That's what the unknown is for, right?
Yeah, right. But it sounds like
a measurable thing.
Yeah.
Something you can witness, but you can't capture it or study it almost like it's
those orbs. Whenever I hear these stories about orbs, and we see a lot of video of them too, of course, they look like they're flickering. And during the testimony on the congressional hearing last summer, when the two pilots and the whistleblower spoke in front of Congress, one of the pilots described an orb kind of object that was flying right in between their planes or dogging their planes on the East Coast. And it was a 15-foot diameter, I'm sorry, crystal, clear glass globe with a black cube inside of it. And I've noticed when they hover that this cube is spinning. And I believe these things are kind of like their version of a spy drone. Obviously, they're not a manned craft of any kind.
That particular one, the one that I saw in, it might have been 71, 72. It was certainly a lot bigger than what the pilots were describing. And it was solid, and it was not flickering at all.
No, this is not one of those little orbs.
No. What I saw was more like a craft. Okay. So,
they have so many. Yeah, it seems like they have so many varieties for different purposes.
Yeah, like we have, just like we have with our cars. Different varieties.
Yeah, motorcycles. Yeah. Motorcycles to trucks to trains and all that. Yeah.
Yes.
And I keep hearing people attribute. They'll say, "Oh, the triangular ones are this species of alien, and the round ones are that species."
Yeah, it's just two.
Species can make multiple vehicles.
Yeah. We're not all driving around in one kind of
one kind of car. There's trucks and
around about that time, my brother started sleeping. My brother, who's passed away, he started sleeping in our closet in our room, about the age about 6 or so. From about the age of 6 to 8 or 7 to 9, somewhere around there. And I asked Philip, I said, why are you sleeping in the closet? Being the elder brother. And he said, well, I'm afraid of the little men who come at night. And that kind of clicked with me because I remembered about at his age that I was sleeping in the bunk bed and I kind of just turned over during the middle of the night and I saw these little garden gnome guys that were about the size of garden gnomes, and there were 5 of them, and they were walking into my doorway, and I looked at them, cleared my eyes, and they were kind of shimmery, but they were definitely, these little entities. So when he told me that, he was afraid of the little men who come at night, I had to believe him because I had seen them myself.
Yeah.
What do you know what he's talking about? I just have a question. How little were they? Were they like a foot tall?
They were about a foot and a half, maybe foot and a half. I mean, they were literally garden gnome size. Okay.
Yeah. Did they have an actual conical hat like that, like a pointed hat?
Kind of. But we didn't. Number one, we didn't even have a color TV back in those days, and in our house, and we didn't have a TV in our room, so it wasn't something that we were imagining. And certainly, my brother and I don't think I even told him about the little guys that I saw because he was 6 years younger. So You know, when I first saw them, he was probably like 3.
You don't want to scare him anymore.
So
yeah,
it was
right.
just like it was just the weirdism was already weird enough. So you know, you don't talk with your friends about this kind of stuff.
I'd like to point out that the whole family were having these weird blackout things happening to them, but they were a reticent bunch, and it took us a while before we started comparing notes, you know, with each other. And it was Philip, his brother, who saw a gray alien standing in his room.
A tall gray alien.
Yeah. After these things tend to come in clusters. Steven had a big cluster of things happen, and
1979.
yeah, and then Philip's cluster was 3 incidents. The first one, he was awakened to these white lights shining into his bedroom, bright white lights, and he couldn't figure out what they were because there's no road or cars back there.
Totally different house, by the way, house that we were building.
And the phenomenon follows him around to all
Yeah.
different locations. It's not like a haunting, you know, where it's fixed to a location. But he and then he blacks out as he's staring at these lights, trying to figure out what they are. He suddenly blacks out. And this is common with the families. Like they'll see something scary or weird, sometimes terrifying, and they'll still black out. It's not like they're just rolling over and going back to sleep, right? If they're terrified, you know?
Yeah.
So the second night was the terrifying one for him. He was laying in bed and he heard a scrabbling sound on the floor and assumed it was one of the cats. And he reached down to pet the cat. And instead, a hand grabs his wrist like this. And he feels this thrill of terror and adrenaline rush through him.
Like anybody would.
But then,
Yeah.
but then blacks out again, you know, right after that. And then the third night, he awoke to look in his doorway and see a tall gray alien standing there. And that's when we finally put all the pieces together and started realizing that that's what this phenomenon is being caused by. And I hear this a lot in our subsequent research. We discovered that people frequently will remember little pieces of their abductions, but they can't remember the face of their abductor.
Yeah.
Let me just.
I think they tamper with memory, and that's the shimmery quality to the nose. Now you go ahead.
Yeah, let me tag in. Okay.
Let's go.
Yeah, this entity, this old Glegly, always appeared to people as about tall, skinny entity, about 6.5 feet tall, but always tall and skinny. Sometimes black. For me, I'll relay the incidents that happened to the whole family in 2 different locations. A house that we were building up in Sonora, California, in the woods. My dad and I were builders and, you know, cabinet makers. My dad from England. So anyway, the first night at the Fallbrook House in Woodland Hills, California, my dad's bedroom doors opened and closed on him, almost like a portal type thing, you know, like people talk about, opened and closed, right? And he was awakened by it, and then he just ended up going back to sleep. But he told me about it, and my sister Karen at the time, in the morning about this, and I just kind of this whatever, you know, maybe it'd been a dream or something.
Yeah,
like
it's so hard to tell, like the day
it's
after.
just hard to tell because I didn't see it, right? It didn't happen to me. So my dad was he was a cop, in Britain for 4 years, and he was in the Royal Air Force. So he was a no nonsense guy.
Yeah, he's got his head on him for sure.
Yeah, he's got his head on him, right? Been through the war as a kid. So anyways, the next night, I was just been studying Tai Chi for like about a year and a half, and I was like really into it. I was reading also a lot of Paramahansa Yogananda's work, autobiography of a yogi, which I highly recommend for anybody, and his metaphysical meditations. And I was reading his metaphysical meditations, and I thought, you know, my dad might really kind of like this stuff. So I gave the book to my dad and went back into my room. And about a half an hour later, about 9:30 at night, he came into my room with this puzzled look on his face. He said, "I'm hearing a silver bell." I said, "Okay, Dad. All right, where are you hearing it?" "I'm hearing it in the fireplace." And so I went into the living room, and sure enough, there is the sound of a silver bell. You cannot mistake a silver bell. It has a very specific tone to it. And it was being rung inside the wall, not in the fireplace, but inside the wall by the fireplace. And we're just like looking up the chimney and saying,
sure,
just trying to listen to like, what the hell is that?
Where is this coming from?
Where is it? And then we got my sister, who was, wanted to have nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
And she came into the room and she said, "Where's that silver bell coming from?"
Oh, so she's
And
hearing
so,
it too.
so
Yeah.
for all three of us heard it at the same
You're
time.
you're all
It's like
yeah.
definitely
Wow.
outside of like your mind at that point. Like unless you're
Right,
like all sharing this like experience, like
Same dream, yeah.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
not,
Which that's a whole different.
we're in the
Yeah.
we're not in an
You're like,
alpha
okay.
state. We're in the typical beta
Yeah.
state.
Wide
So
awake.
anyway, so we went on for a good 10 minutes or so, banging on the wall, and then it stopped. And my mother and my younger brother were living up the house that we were building in Sonora, which was 350 miles away. And we would call them every morning just to say hi and whatever. So my mom said to my dad, said, the weirdest thing happened last night. Around about 9:30, I heard this bell and I thought it was the phone. So she picked up the phone, and on the other end, she said hello, and then this voice said something along the lines of, "I am the invisible Beachy," which she could have misheard it as Oglegly. I am Oglegly. I'm the invisible Beachy. I don't know.
Did
So
you?
I talked.
Could
Sorry.
I? No. So this old Legly again. Like, have you looked into like what that word what might mean? Like you say
Yeah,
you have
I
like
have.
Yeah.
German. Yeah. What is
No, it's
that?
actually my I found this out by accident. Not really by accident, but my uncle and aunt, they were world travelers and quite well off. And he was also in the Royal Air Force, and he was British. And his life was actually saved by Old Glegley in the
Okay.
very early 1950s or late 40s. He was stationed in Sri Lanka, which was Ceylon at the time. So anyway, apparently in the Tunisian language, Oglegli means my friend. Okay.
Oh.
Okay. So it means my friend. Now this character Oglegli awakened. He already knew about Oglegli. He heard about it from my mom's mother and grandmother, and so he was aware of the story. But what convinced him was what happened to him that night in Ceylon. He was in a multi-man tent, stationed out kind of in the jungle area, and he was awakened by this tall, slender figure, dark, had a red fez on, he said, and it woke him and said, "Douglas, you have to get out of here right now. You're going to be attacked, and some of you are going to die, and it could be you." Along those lines, right? So he just got up, and as he got up out of his cot, the figure just disappears. He runs out, and about a minute later, sure enough, a raiding party comes through with machetes and some guns and kill several of the officers.
Wow.
And he told me this story when I was like, 15 or 16. He believed it so much that because it happened, that the first car that he got for his daughter, the license plate was Oglegli. Okay. So this is not something that the family took as being just a farcical thing. I mean, he took it very, very seriously.
I think he appreciated his life being saved.
Now again, this is tall and skinny. Okay, the commonality here: my brother seeing a tall, skinny gray, my uncle seeing a tall, skinny, dark figure with a fez. Now, what happened to me? Continuing with the story from 1979, after the thing with the ringing bell, right? So the next night, I was sleeping in my bedroom, not on the top bunk, but on the lower bunk. Gotten rid of the top part at that point. And I was awakened by this whizzing sound in the air, like a whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And I rolled over to kind of look down the hallway, and there's a little light on in the kitchen, so I could kind of look down the hallway, and there was nothing there. I just thought, well, maybe some bug or something like that. So I turned over to go back to sleep again, and I was, just relaxing, and then the bed is shoved twice from the foot of the bed. It's like a gentle, like 2 shoves, push, push. And growing up in Southern California, going through earthquakes, I thought, well, maybe it's a little earthquake. Trying to be logical,
rationalizing,
not buying into fear. Okay.
Just rationalize whatever's happening.
Trying to rationalize.
Trying to make any sense. Yeah.
Being a guy, right? So anyway, so
this is fine.
Yeah, this is fine. Okay. So anyway, so then it happens again, but a little stronger again. And so I'm thinking, okay, is somebody trying to play a trick on me or something like that? I'm trying to rationalize again. So then the third time is a lot stronger too. And then I'm getting kind of nervous and annoyed. And then I get 3 taps, tap, 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 like with an index finger on my on my right deltoid, below the shoulder, the mid deltoid. And then I said, enough of this. What's going to happen next? So I rolled over and I said, what? And I could tell there was something there. The air was kind of shimmery. I could tell there's something there, but I can't see it. And then I black out again.
Yeah, it's
so
like
so I told my dad,
cloak over itself.
Yeah, I told my dad and my sister at breakfast time, and my sister again wanted to have nothing to do with this. And so we went about it. We had to work. We were cabinet makers, so we had to go back to work. And so the next night I said, I'm not sleeping in my bedroom. If this is what's going to be happening, and I don't know what's going on. So I just sleep in my work clothes from the day before, and I'm sleeping on the sofa. I went to sleep on the sofa in the living room. So again, this is January, so it's dark. I woke up about 5:30 in the morning, laying, face up. And I looked at my piano because I'm a musician that plays multiple instruments, orchestral level. And I listened to I looked at the piano, then I listened to the fountain in the other room. So I'm awake, I'm alert. I said, I'm not going to get up. It's just too early, right? And then from behind me, about 25 feet behind me, is the front door. And this entity, again, tall, skinny entity, okay, this time blue-white, okay, comes like walking, floating towards me in about a second and a half to 2 seconds, filling the entire living room up with this blue-white light, okay? And it just kind of floats, comes to me, and stops by my right side. And as soon as it stops by my right side, the whole right side of my body, like you take a knife right down the center, just becomes paralyzed, okay? I had my right eye open, but I couldn't close it, all right? So I'm paralyzed, and I'm thinking that I'm going to see O'Glegley. I'm going to see the family spirit guide that other people, I'm just assuming that, right? So this entity, again, is about 6.5 feet tall, blue-white. It bends down to me and whispers in my right ear, not in my head, but in my ear, says, "Hi, Steve." Just saying, knew my name, obviously, and was being friendly, but I couldn't tell whether it was male or female. It was a whisper. And my mind was thinking, God, I wanted to see your face, O'Glegley. I'm assuming it's O'Glegley. And the other half of me is saying, dude, you can't move. You are paralyzed. You are at the mercy of this being, right? And I guess maybe the 50-50 split of my being, wanting to talk, which I couldn't even talk.
Like a
I couldn't move my mouth. I could think, but I couldn't move my mouth. And then it just basically bent back up, and then it left, and taking the blue-white with it. And then I just pass out. I just
Have you heard of an entity called the sand down clown?
No.
Oh,
so it's
actually, I have, because
I have.
I watched this cryptid web. The Strangeology has it on there.
Sure, yeah. So I connect to the sand down clown to a couple different cases. This was something in, I believe, the 70s over in Great Britain. It was two children that saw this entity while they were camping, and it was it just it was ticking a couple boxes. It's like you were saying that O'Glegley was wearing this like red fez at one point. The sand down clown is this like 7-foot thing that has this kind of peculiar cap on. It looks like when we talk about these creatures, we always say that it's like they're trying to put on like a human skin, like it's something else, like trying to fake it out, maybe some kind of cloaking thing. But that's what it was.
Or they tamper with the memory of the people who see it.
And all these things, like you're saying, it was floating. Like all these cases seem to be these creatures. Like you can't even focus on their feet. Like you're sitting here with it. That's kind of in the periphery. It's just kind of coming at you like that. Just very interesting little connection there.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, I understand it. It kind of sounds similar, but it really isn't. I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Okay, trying to ask witnesses, if they focused on hands, how many fingers, and they, like you say, though, they can't seem to focus on.
You just can't.
That. Sorry, I interrupted.
All right.
Yeah.
So 6 hours later, my dad and I are getting hungry for lunch. So I said, I'll just go down to Jack in the Box and get something. So I reached into my right-hand side pocket of the pants I had been wearing when the entity approached me, pulled out all the coins that I had, the standard American coins, and every one was magnetized. Every one was magnetic. My dad and I could pick up the coins by the edge, by the face, didn't matter. I had a couple 6-penny nails in there too from the day before, and everything was magnetized. Okay, this is 6 hours after it happened, and my dad and I knew. My dad was, he one of his majors when he was going to school was like in chemistry, so he said this isn't this isn't naturally possible. But again, we put it down to the weirdness of the family. So the final night, this time my dad experienced this and I didn't. I was awakened in the middle of the night by this solid wall of blue-white light that was coming from my bedroom. Okay.
He had gone back to sleep in this previous bedroom.
I would decide to go back to sleep in my bedroom because if it didn't matter where I was sleeping, but I still had to get sleep. Right? Do I just leave the house or what? I don't know.
Yeah.
So anyway, so he's awakened by this intense wall of blue-white light coming from my bedroom.
Room. Oh wow!
Right?
Okay.
Coming from my bedroom. Encompassing the whole doorway. And so his being an ex-cop saying, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. So he was getting out of bed, and in his head, he heard this voice say, "Jeffrey, just relax, go back to sleep. Nothing to see here. Everything's okay." And that's exactly what he did. He basically went back to sleep. And I have no recollection of that at all. I just know what he told me. And at that point, then everything stopped.
Yeah, that little cluster of activity kind of ended, at that point.
Yeah. So at this point, my brother hadn't seen The Gray, and I hadn't decided to write a book about. We hadn't decided to write a book about this. So these were just interesting things. I've had so many things happen. I mean, it's like a boxer. It's like a boxer. If you get punched in the face 500 times, 501 doesn't mean very much.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, you got to start writing books so you even keep it all in your head at one time.
Right. I've had numerous times where I'm just trying to get to sleep and just really relaxing, and I'll hear 3 knocks right behind my head on the wall. Okay, as an example, or I'll hear sometimes the sound of a flute or a musical instrument or a person's voice
or
a door slamming, just like somebody slams my bedroom door or plate glass just being broken.
All kinds of weird,
all kinds of strange things. It's there's so many that have happened. It's hard to keep track.
Some of that almost sounds like haunting type stuff. I mean, like the lines are so like it can get crossed so easily. Do you think that is all involved in the same kind of theory?
I think, definitely. I think number one that our cousins, as we call them, they didn't lose their technology. They did not lose their ability to be able to communicate on a psychic telepathically.
Sure.
It's like we have a part of our brain. It's like, if you never do a pull-up in your life, you never exercise that muscle, you'll never be able to do a pull-up. But we have that as a gift, and I think some people just have just a hair more, and which I do, which I have it just a bit more than other people.
One thing with hauntings tend to be focused on a location, and as we began our research, we discovered that this thing where you see something weird and black out, this is the signature for the alien abduction phenomenon. And the more we researched it, the more we realized at the time, the theory for abductions was that aliens are just curious about the human race. They just want to know more about us. So they're just taking a few samples, no big deal. But that really wasn't what was happening. We started to research, we realized that what was happening instead is that families are targeted. Like the cousins or aliens, they find a particular strain of DNA that they like, that meets their criteria of what they want. And then they'll start taking the family members again and again and again and again and again through their lives. It's more like they're harvesting a product from them because they have to take it again and again.
If they're visiting over generations.
They're opportunistic, and they have a necessity that they're trying to meet.
It's
what
like
are they?
We make the analogy like a farmer's cow. Like he needs the milk, right? So he abducts his cow in the morning into the barn and takes the milk, but and then he puts it back out to make more milk so that he can then take it again later and take. It seems like that's what's going on with.
Just like
Stephen, how do you feel being the cow in this situation?
Honestly, having never been a father that I know of, I may actually have kids out there that I don't know of.
Some hybrid progeny. Sure.
I mean, they're they're interested in us for our blood and our semen and our ovum.
That
genetic
comes up
material.
again and again. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's there's definitely a
genetic
need.
material.
Right. It's a need they have. It's not just scientific curiosity. We are
It's like a
actually
harvest.
necessary for them. We're
then-
necessary for
And
them.
then they tend to target certain things that we can look at from the data, right? Like we know they target mostly Caucasian people for whatever reason.
Yes.
It's like 9 out of 10 people taken are Caucasian.
Mhm.
And a lot of them are Basque. And the Basque race has the highest incidence of Rh negative blood type.
Okay.
And so we don't know if they're after Rh negative blood and therefore taking more Basques, or if they're after Basques and therefore taking more Rh negative blood types.
Okay.
But
Those studies
like
are hard
4
to.
out of 10 abductees are Rh
And
negative.
disproportionate amount of green-eyed people are taken as far as like for the
Right.
average.
Okay.
It's a recessive trait. They're all different.
Interesting.
They're all different things, such as that. Like for instance, the Caucasians only make up 16% of the world's population.
So why
Yeah,
90% of their interest?
It's a huge amount as far as it's disproportionate by any measurement.
So that's about when I started looking at theories, UFO theories and UFO facts weren't lining up properly. They weren't meshing.
Mm-hmm.
And I, because the theory at the time was that these beings are coming here from distant star systems, that they're visitors, that they're aliens coming from very far away and coming here from very far away.
Yeah.
But that wasn't making sense with the numbers either. They're seen 10,000 times a year, every year.
Reported sightings, which means
because so it could be quadruple
Yeah,
that.
so many
'cause,
people
a
don't
lot of
report
people
what they
don't
see.
report.
Yeah, they just catch it and then just let it go. Yeah.
So just the numbers alone are pointing to more like residency, or at least if they're coming here from huge distances, they have some sort of technology that makes it incredibly easy.
Yeah.
Like they just open a door and walk through or something.
But then you have to look at what they call like in forensic, medicine, the mom theory, means, opportunity, and motive. If they have the means and they have the opportunity, what is their motive? Why are they so interested in our cows and domestic animals and taking the blood and the sex organs, the eyes, it's like, what's, and it's some people say, oh, that's all government. Well, the first reports of that type of stuff go back to like 1660 in London. So this is just not something that, that being pulled off by, it's like, no.
I'm sure it's something you could. Well, yeah, I'm sure it's something you could find like evidence of these things happening like in ancient times too.
Yeah, it's like at some point
sure,
they just didn't record it, but it's like it was probably always happening, right?
That's what I was about to say, is that we have evidence of them going back for thousands of years. So they've been coming here 10,000 times a year, every year for thousands of years.
For the entire human history, or like current human history, I guess. But
So and I'd like to back up and talk about Admiral Byrd. It was when Stephen has a copy of Admiral Byrd's diary.
I got it when it first came out in '92. That's when I really started to wanted to try and make sense of what had been happening to me throughout my life. So
and Admiral Byrd's diary, he talks about meeting with this race of men under the ice sheet of Antarctica. And
are you familiar with the story?
I am.
Most people have heard of the diary.
I've definitely
not read it. I've just heard different stories.
But I'm still interested. It's good just to like cover it anyway.
Yeah, in this meeting, he meets with an older man who talks to him about, you're in the kingdom of the Ariani, the underworld, and we normally don't have anything to do with you surface barbarians and your wars, but because you have broken the atom, because you split the atom, now we have to do something. Now we have to intercede. And as soon as we took this story and applied it to all our UFO data, suddenly everything starts clicking. This is a breakaway branch of humanity living under the surface. Aha! That's why they're interested in Caucasian DNA. They are Caucasians. And it just, everything just started clicking together. That's why they're seeing being launched up out of lakes, up out of the
yeah.
ocean, up out of the mesa and the mountain and the volcano and the ridge. It's because they are coming up out of our world from below. And suddenly it clicked together. And there's all these stories about underground civilization all over the world.
The Hopis have it too. They call them basically the Anunnaki or the ant people.
Yeah,
they call them.
So
interesting that the word for ant people in Hopi is Anunnaki.
That's
I thought that was very.
I wonder how they thought of that word.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah,
that's their own language, So
the way all these things like tie in together is like so. It's so fascinating because like these are cultures from like the opposite sides of the world around the same time, like having the same kind of name for the same kind of like
you find it in every culture. It seems like just around.
It's like too similar to like just say it's a coincidence almost. Like.
I know. It's like so many like academics that don't want to part with like for instance like the whole the BS about how the pyramids were built and when they were built. I mean that's being held on to by people that learned that and they got their professorships 40 years ago. It's just like they don't want to they don't want to admit that they're wrong.
Exactly.
Because they don't.
So when we were
continue.
So we started looking for a reason why the human race would split into groups going underground, and that's when my background came into play. I had been a major in college. I majored in ancient art history. I minored in ancient art history, and that was very important for our book later on.
Yeah, nice.
And I had read this book by this man named Fraser in the 1800s. He had tracked down 500 separate flood myths worldwide.
Yeah, right.
And showing that there was some sort of a shared event. And since then, like 1,200, there's now 1,200.
Yeah, Hancock
discovered.
Yeah,
flood
it's like
myths,
every single culture
lore.
has one.
Any culture that was at the time around at the time is like, there was a flood. It messed us up.
Mm-hmm.
And then about 3 decades ago, nano diamonds were discovered in the Uccello horizon and the Younger Dryas boundaries. These are layers of soil laid down 13,000 years ago. Right at the same time, we lost, there was an extinction event. We lost the mammoth and the mastodon
Ice Age animals,
and the dire wolf and the saber-toothed cat and the American horse, camel and the stilt bear,
Clovis people,
and the Clovis people also were wiped out at the same time. So once the nano diamonds were discovered, we knew for certain that it was a celestial impact of some kind, because that's the only way nano diamonds form is in like a meteor or a comet. When it comes through our atmosphere, it brings dust particles with it, and those dust particles superheat
just over 2,000
degrees, and they form these little tiny round micro diamonds. So we knew it was a celestial impact, and science was looking for the crater and couldn't find a crater. And then we found the Hiawatha asteroid impact crater under Greenland, the ice sheet of Greenland.
In northern Greenland,
we thought, oh, this is it. They finally found the crater. But that turned out to be dated to 45 million years ago, so that wasn't it. But the Younger Dryas comet impact zone in Lake Superior, what is now Lake Superior, that has been dated to 12,850 years ago. So that's our culprit.
Right at that 13,000 mark there,
Yeah, that's our killer.
Yeah,
that's the murderer.
That's the one. Yeah.
like I say that in our book we got at the time when we wrote the book, a lot of the scientists were divided on the asteroid impact in Greenland. It's still Colonel Mustard with the knife, but it's not in the kitchen; it's in the dining room. So. It's still the same thing. They're close by.
Yeah.
Well, it's cool that you
this is the cause of the flood.
Sorry,
well,
what were you
it's cool
saying?
that y'all were even able to kind of narrow it down again, that you continue to research and find new data, and then
Yeah.
yeah, you know.
Yeah, we were embarrassed because we thought it was hiawatha.
It's not that big
but
of a deal.
Oh,
It's
no,
still-
yeah, it's
still
like-
the same
Wrong
thing.
one.
Yeah.
The forests of the northern hemisphere were all on fire at the same time.
Yeah.
Because as the comet came through, it was an airburst apparently, maybe about 100 feet above the surface. But as it came through, because comets are basically huge, sturdy ice balls with rocks, right? So that's basically what a comet is, right? So
But
it
breaks
breaks
up.
apart.
Yeah,
and
it's
then
just
the
raining
parts that,
fire over the
it
entire
starts raining
world.
fire. So we know with that soil deposit about around 13,000 years ago, which is about an inch thick, it's common throughout four continents and 10 different countries we found so far. So we know that the forests were on fire
The entire northern hemisphere
at the same time.
Yeah.
We know that.
Yeah.
And we
Yes.
also do know, probably as kids, you probably read about the mammoths being found in Siberia and the different, warmer climate type of subtropical, like the rhinoceros and, yada, yada, yada. There's been about 10 or 11 different species of mammal that don't exist in ice environments that were found. And even there's discrepancy between the fruit tree. They're saying it wasn't
It's
a
an
plum
alder
tree,
tree, yeah.
it's an alder tree, but it doesn't matter. It still had its leaves intact. It still had
frozen,
seeds.
flash frozen so quickly,
Flash
the leaves were
frozen.
still
Yeah.
on
So
the tree.
we know that Siberia wasn't in the place that it currently is.
Oh yeah, so we're talking about the lithospheric shift here. We
Okay.
think that Hapgood's theory puts the last lithospheric shift between 12 and 18,000 years ago. Before that, the North Pole was in the East Hudson Bay.
East Hudson Bay.
Okay.
And because of this discovery of the mammoths from a temperate zone that are now in an Arctic zone, this proves that the lithospheric shift happened the same day as the Younger Dryas comet impact.
Yeah,
Right.
geez.
So
Because alders also don't live in
don't live in
Arctic.
Siberia.
Mhm.
Siberia. So it shifted the planet. It actually, that's what a lithospheric shift is. It's like
the outer crust.
the outer crust moves on the liquid mantle, and when this happens, it's catastrophic.
Yeah.
The comet itself would have caused massive tsunamis and torrential rains, worldwide torrential rains. But the added devastation of a lithospheric shift at the time, that rips the oceans from
Yeah,
the
that's a
beds,
world. That's a
you know,
world.
and-
Yeah, the water keeps its momentum going, but it like shifts the direction. Yeah. Because I've heard of that idea too. Because it's like most likely probably what happened, and that's something that like could easily happen again as well.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
now
like
your
we're like-
500-foot tall tsunami
Yeah,
is a 2,000-foot tall tsunami,
Yeah,
you know,
it's the
rushing
entire-
into
it's the
every
entire
coastline
ocean.
of the world. You know?
There
Yeah,
are
ocean,
two
yeah.
other really important pieces because I have a geological geology too, a background.
Oh.
in
Yeah,
that.
we really
Right
needed
on.
that
One thing,
help.
Yeah,
one
nice.
thing, one thing that you can tell as far as where the magnetic North Pole is or was is if you can figure out the time when a new lava or magma was laid down, was belched up from the earth and then turns to lava. It's the ferrous materials and the magnetic materials when they lay down, as far as when they harden, is that they always point to where the current North magnetic pole is.
The North Pole.
So we can tell part of the data, as far as we knew at this time period, that the magnetic North Pole was in the East Hudson Bay. So that's one part of hard data we can talk about right there. That is very important to our theory. And there was one other point I was going to make too, is that well, I blanked right now. But that was very, very important to basically say, okay, this is actually physical scientific data.
Yeah, here's something to
That's
look at.
proof.
Here's
That
the
proves
actual.
the flood really did happen.
Yeah,
you
the
know?
other part was the genetic bottleneck. Due to our, now we found that there was a genetic bottleneck that we know that the surface people at the time were reduced to several thousand to maybe 10,000
Maybe
people.
10,000
Yeah.
people.
So
Yeah, it
we
was
are
like a
less
small town.
genetically, we're less genetically diverse
Than we should be.
than we should be.
Yeah.
Okay, so all these things are pointing towards like a conclusive, a pretty good theory as far as we're not dealing with interdimensionals and people
Mhm.
coming from Andromeda and things such as that.
Right.
They're residents that live here. That's
They've
what we
been
call them,
here.
our cousins.
One of the things
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
about our theories is it doesn't require theoretical physics to exist.
Mhm.
Wormholes don't have to exist.
Oh, yeah.
Faster than light travel doesn't have to exist. Interdimensional travel
Yeah,
doesn't
Yeah,
have
they're
to
just
exist.
right here.
Time travel doesn't have to exist.
So
They're
this would
just
be
here
like
with
a-
All right,
us.
this is
would
like
be
an
a-
archaeological,
this
like
would be a breakaway.
geological evidence
Yes.
that just proves that this was a thing. And then I do know, like, in recent years too, like, we keep as like a humans just finding older and older, like the timeline of like humanity is getting pushed back
Yes.
further and
Yeah.
further. And there's like
Yes.
these, even just the pyramids, but like these like
Göbekli
ancient
Tepe.
sites. Yeah, exactly. Where it's like they're highly advanced and way older than we ever thought.
Right. And the further back in time you go, the more megalithic the
Yeah.
architecture becomes.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Yep.
It's like
Yeah,
it's a
it just
backward
becomes
scale.
stranger and stranger going backwards
Yep.
in time,
Yeah.
which points to a time where we were more advanced, then got
Yep.
wiped out and had to start
Mhm.
over, right? Which is what
Mhm.
we think exactly happened.
Mhm.
So think about this. Some guy or lady sitting
Mhm.
on the planet 13,000 years ago spots a comet coming. And
Yep.
that means they had more advanced astronomy than we give them
Yep.
credit for. But we now know that that's the case. The ancient Sumerians had advanced astronomy. So
Yep.
we
Yeah.
know that
Yep.
it was something we had, then lost, and then the
Yep.
Greeks had to rediscover it all again
Yep.
later. But the Sumerians knew about precession.
Yeah.
That's the slow change of Earth's relative position to the
Yep.
firmament
Sure, yeah,
above,
like-
right?
They were
Um,
like aware of like certain planets too that weren't discovered until like
Right.
even like
Yeah.
400
It's
years
bizarre.
ago.
Yeah,
Like
that's
they didn't like knew
Absolutely.
like Pluto and like Uranus were all out there, Saturn, like
Yeah, Pluto
They
wasn't
knew
even
about these
discovered
things.
till 1930 something.
rediscovered
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
well, yeah.
And I like how they count the Sumerians count the planets from the outside in. Pluto is one.
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
Neptune is two. It's like they're coming here from the outside, right?
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
that's
okay,
like the
there's
map.
one
Yeah.
planet. There's a
It's
second
gonna be
one.
the first one you stop at, then like interesting.
Yeah.
Oh dear. So, but whatever else these flood myths tell us, they
Mhm.
also tell us that these would be a really, really, really good reasons to go underground.
Yeah.
You see a comet coming, you warn the whole world. That's why
Mhm.
all the flood myths start with, and we were warned by God that
Yeah.
a flood is coming, and we're all going to be wiped out unless we build an ark or go to high ground.
Mhm.
Usually, God has some advice in these flood myths.
Yeah,
It's like,
That's
oh, you must build a boat to,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
you must go to the mountaintop or dig underground. It's
Mhm.
always some way of surviving the cataclysm that God warns them about.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
warning for sure.
which is it's almost relevant just today with all like the news and like all the like world tension with like nuclear wars and all that. Like
Yeah.
we
People are
almost have
digging in
like
underground. Rich
people are like
making
building bunkers
bunkers.
currently. Like there's like
In New
it's like
Zealand.
it's something we still have in us.
Yeah, what
Like
do
we
you-
either need to go to space or we need to get under the ground.
How do you feel about like DUMBs, like the deep underground military bases? You know about that kind of.
I think
Yeah.
they're a good idea. 'Cause,
Yeah.
Do you think
know-
that any of those are like currently in place, or like is there some sort of
Oh,
like
yeah.
cooperation then there between
Yeah.
the?
yes, we believe
yeah.
so.
Archuleta Mesa.
In 1941, there was a Roswell kind of incident
Hmm.
that was covered up really well.
Cape
Though
Cod.
Yeah.
it didn't hit the media, right?
Yeah, I guess
It
I
was in
haven't heard
Cape-
of this one, so
Yeah,
they did a
it
pretty
was
good job.
Cape Girardeau, Missouri. There was
Okay.
a small ship crashed, and it was destroyed, and there were dead alien bodies there.
Mhm.
And they gathered it all up and took it to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base at the time, which that's where was the Area 51 before Area 51,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so we think our government became aware of these things at some point. We think in the 1940s when this crash happened. And then the whole thing that happened with Admiral Byrd, we didn't talk about Operation High Jump.
Yeah.
Operation High Jump was this, in the 1930s, the Nazis were showing this bizarre interest in Antarctica.
Yes.
They had their U-boats just combing the Queen Maudlin coast up and
Mhm.
down. And then later, a U-boat captain said, "I have discovered a paradise under the ice for
my
our
Führer."
Führer and for the Nazi homeland," or something like that.
Yeah.
And then they start sending all this mining equipment and personnel and workers and all to. So our U.S. intelligence surmised that they had a base under the ice down there, the Nazis.
Well, yeah. After we basically took over Berlin and started divvying up all the information, and also doing the Operation Paperclip with like von Braun, you start getting the information from the scientists as far as what is going on. So it's no a big coincidence that in the very early months of 1947, less than a year and a half basically after the war has ended, that we send the biggest armada of ships to do exploration, headed by Admiral Byrd, who was unimpeachable in his character.
Think he was tasked with destruction of this Nazi base.
Or taking it over at least.
So in the February 26th, I think, of 1947.
Yes, it was.
The Armada is at Queen Maud Land, and all these flying saucers rise up out of the ocean and attack the Armada with these rays. They sink one of the destroyers, they down half the aircraft, and they kill dozens of men. And then they dive back into the ocean, and the battle is over. And I think this is when Byrd does his foray out in his plane.
His reconnaissance.
Recon, thank you. That's a better word for it. We know about an enormous hole in the Antarctic ice sheet. We think you can actually, big enough where you can fly a plane into the Ariana underworld.
Yeah, the planes were smaller back in those days.
Yeah, they were smaller too. So he flies into the underworld, and that's when the diary part happens. So after they were attacked, the operation that was supposed to last 6 months turned tail and ran back to South America in just 2 months.
Tierra del Fuego area, yeah.
And after that, Byrd was quoted in the Argentine press saying, "If America is attacked, if America has another war, we can be attacked by an enemy that can fly from pole to pole with incredible speed." And then he went back to Washington and was muzzled, debriefed and muzzled, right? And the only time he spoke about it ever again in his whole life was in his posthumously released diary.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's like he couldn't,
because it was like his son or grandson found it or something.
His son going through his personal effects found it.
After he passed.
What a thing to find too.
So we know. So in the 40s, we know for a fact that our government was made aware of these creatures living under our world, inside our world. And we think there was a meeting between the Nordic aliens, who happen to look just like Caucasian human beings, by the way.
Kind of like us,
just like
tall Swedes.
Like Nordic people. Supposedly they met with Eisenhower, and they made a deal to keep the secret and share technology. But the one thing they really wanted to get from that meeting that they didn't get was they wanted us to denuclearize. That's their main thrust of what they want. And that's why ever since then, they've been following our nukes. They've been monitoring our nuclear facilities. They've been following our military every single time.
Every nuclear power, the Chinese, the Brits, it doesn't matter, the Russians.
And that makes sense of our theory too, because if we blow up the planet, we kill them too. And that's why they care so much.
They're kind of just monitoring, kind of guarding, which kind of it gives me the question of, like, do you think, like, your family spirit, do you think that's like one of these, like this like community, this entity, this like race of
a family's handler, so to speak?
You're acting like a handler. Like I've had my life saved on at least 2 different occasions by a person that's there and then is not there. I should have been dead. April Fool's Day 1992.
But see, we protect our prize cow.
Well, it's like
we like him,
if you got like cows in like a pen, and then all of a sudden one kind of gets out without really realizing it got out, and then you got to pull it out of the river. It gets stuck. You got to
you have to protect your,
or like you have to
livestock.
Make sure the cows aren't blowing each other up too much.
With
or,
the
like destroying the planet or anything.
With this underground civilization, and like y'all probably heard about like the missing 411, these national park disappearances.
Yes. Oh yeah, of course.
And you've probably seen the maps
some people
of it.
And sometimes
Yeah.
don't put them back.
Yeah.
You know, like you see the maps of like the caves around like the world, and then like the missing persons, and it's like dot for dot. You can see them.
It's
Very and then I don't know. Then it goes into like, how do y'all feel about like Bigfoot then too? Because that goes right in there too.
the
For
Sasquatch.
Yes.
We have number one. It's been confirmed that there is an unknown primate that's living in the northwest of like California.
The genome has actually been isolated. So
Isolated in urine samples.
I didn't hear
taken
about
from
that.
rivers.
Yeah,
That's very cool.
It's been confirmed.
That's cool.
That there is something that is unknown. But as far as like, we have the theory that either they come from, that they were uplifted in a sense, either from Gigantopithecus about 300,000 years ago, or Robustus.
Australopithecus robustus is another possible candidate.
Right. And they serve a couple purposes, but one of the purposes seems to be like kind of almost like as a guard or a sentry.
We think
around
I've read stories like that too.
Yeah,
where it's
like
like you
around,
see a
you know,
gray
like-
with like a Bigfoot behind him or something. It's
Yes. Yeah, there's stories where or a UFO is spotted at the same time as a Bigfoot.
all the time
incident.
almost. It seems like there's
That
always
happens a
one in the
lot
sky.
actually.
Yeah.
And what we think is that they utilize genetic modification as a tool, just like we would use any tool. And I think that that's what the whole reptiloids are about. I think when they need a species to work underwater for a long time, they don't make scuba gear. They make a bunch of reptiloids that can breathe underwater.
Sure, yeah.
See
If
what I mean?
if they have no quarrels with genetic research like humans do, it's like then you can do whatever you
we
want.
don't. We don't
Well, it's
really
probably
either,
similar.
but-
Well, yeah, we're hiding it. Right
I mean,
now,
it probably
so,
it's probably just similar. Like the perspective of it is like, just to bring it back to like the cows. It's like you just genetically like breed them certain ways with certain other cows to like get a certain product out of it. Like
Get what you want out of it.
the genes, keep the genes and the genetic like
Precisely.
DNA.
Yeah.
And so I think they bred
What you want.
I think they bred Bigfoots at some point. I don't know why originally, but now I think they use them as sentries to protect the entrances to their underground facilities, right? Shasta is one of the big underground facilities. It's riddled with Bigfoots. There's Bigfoots every 5 seconds seen up there.
Yeah.
And then in
Kailash.
Alaska, and then the Yeti around Mount Kailash. Mount Kailash is another one of these underground cities called Shambhala. Another story about a big civilization going underground, into a mountain. And mountains are wonderful places to survive a tsunami.
Oh yeah.
It's high ground, so it's above the tsunami line. And volcanoes have a elevator shaft open throat that goes all the way down to the crust of the planet.
Yeah.
And
15, 20 miles sometimes.
And then big chambers open up off this throat like lava tubes. So you've already got like an underground bunker with enormous open chambers that you can put the whole population into.
Yeah, and you don't have to worry about like collapse or anything because it's like it was melted with such heat that
And if you go underground, say in low ground after a tsunami, you could have a lake on top of you. So you want to go underground at high ground.
So you hire some government contractors, and you basically trick it out a little bit, make it a little bit bigger, and put in some plumbing, and you're good to go.
Well, it's like it's not like we're like creating these places. They're already kind of just there then.
Right.
Yeah,
It's like an underground
we just go in
bunker.
and remodel
You can move 100,000 people into like tomorrow if you need to.
We just like change out the kitchen. We upgrade the kitchen a little bit.
That's right. Yeah.
And drill down for geothermal power. And once you have power, you can grow food. So you're snug as a bug.
Yeah.
And
I hear of different like lighting and stuff down there too. I always hear of different
greenish
like,
usually.
Sure.
Ambient greenish for whatever reason.
Bluish greenish. Yeah.
We've heard from people that when we did Bigfoot days a couple of years ago, a lady who used to live in Tennessee,
the Mammoth Cave.
They have
Kentucky.
a lot of cave systems there, and she went down a few times, and it was a very similar story. The further down she went, the more it became more ambient light. And we've heard now also when we were in Anderson last year. This guy talked about the green orbs that he saw going to work like very early in the morning, and they were just floating like horizontally, moving across this like mining pit area. And his description was really interesting. That there's so much stuff going on that it just makes sense that there's a real involvement that they have and a real concern. Like, for instance,
Yeah.
the story of the children in Zimbabwe that
Yes.
they were out like at recess time, and they were like quite a number of them. And
62.
62.
The aerial
Yeah,
school? Is
yeah.
that what- yeah.
Yeah, and the ship came down, and 2 or 3
One ship and 2 gray aliens.
2 gray
emerged,
aliens,
yeah.
and they communicated telepathically, saying, hey,
Take better care.
take better
of the
care
planet.
of the earth, and
Why do they care? They live here.
Yeah.
They're right below us.
Yeah, they're like, come on, guys.
yeah.
Mm.
It seems to me that's their message. They have
Yeah,
2
yeah.
main messages: give up nukes, take better care of the planet. Whenever they do
Yeah.
manage to get their messages across to us,
Mhm.
that it's
Too
one
much
of those
chance.
2.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. What else we
Well,
got?
yeah, I mean, honestly, I think we hit an hour here, not that it really matters, but I think I'd love to have you back sometime to just talk more.
Sure.
I think we can
Sure.
tie it off here. It sounds like I think we're at a good
Mhm.
Yeah, Leslie's
Needle
got to go to
point
work
here.
anyway in a bit.
Oh, yeah,
right
but
on,
it's my easy day. I can go in
Oh,
there.
hey, there you go.
Sure. Yeah, well, let me just let me give you some time here to promote your book again, if you want to talk
Oh,
about.
thank you. Yes. Shameless plug right here. coming
Yeah.
up. It's who they are and what they're up to. And we've only been talking today about like the first half of the book. The second half
Oh,
of the
cool.
book is, are aliens involved at all? And because we're saying that this is the people flying the stuff in our skies right now are the
Giveaway.
branch of humanity, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
But the second half of the book is how humanity was uplifted from ape to man.
Sure.
And yes,
Yeah,
of course,
so-
aliens are involved. So
Okay.
you
Yeah.
still have to read the book
Yeah,
out there.
get
Yeah,
people.
It's
For
a
the
lot,
listeners, check
more,
it out.
yeah, that part's a lot more detailed as far as the different civilizations and the commonalities.
Yeah,
and
I
things
love
like
that.
and the proof.
I'll be picking this book up after
Yeah.
this session.
Oh,
Yeah,
wonderful.
I'll dig into
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah,
of
cool.
course.
Yeah, well,
and,
it was
and oh yes, and Netflix. Please do. I'm not Netflix. Instagram.
Instagram.
How
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mix those 2?
At-
I don't know.
Hey,
It's at
Netflix, here we come, right?
leslie.shaw.author.
Yes, and please visit us there. And if you want to share experiences, I kind of collect bizarre experiences.
perfect. Yeah.
We got this one lady through this account, and Stevens always talks about being tucked back in after his abductions. They were really
Yeah.
nice. They put him back in bed and tucked him in. In her case, she always got left face down on the wooden floor
Yeah.
next to her
Come-
bunk bed.
Come on, yeah.
We happen to know her personally, because I like to deal with people like on a face-to-face basis, because
Yeah.
I can kind of read people fairly well, as far as because I was an acupuncturist for 20 years and
Yeah,
Mhm.
they
a Tai
train
Chi
you.
teacher, so
Yeah.
I'm pretty, and also I'm fairly psychic, so
You got the psychic. Yeah.
so
touch.
I do have that ability that I can use it. In fact, I did it with this. We just did a documentary, by the way, last week for this company called Sky Island Storytelling, and
Oh,
he's won
wonderful.
he's won quite a few awards for this stuff.
Yeah,
Everything
we'll check
from
that out.
Bigfoot,
Honored,
everything from Bigfoot. He's done stuff to martial arts, to
Yeah.
mushrooms and
Sure.
psychedelics.
Yeah,
and he did
well-
one on us, and I had a
cool.
dream about this guy like 2 days before I came over. I told Leslie this dream. I said, ask him if he's going to be going to Arizona real soon, and ask him what's going on with his left shoulder, chest area. He's either got pain or some problem going on there. And sure enough, I said, okay, I just have to ask you these questions, and because
Interesting.
and sure enough, I've got a real interest. This guy had been asking me, I'm going to go to Arizona, which is number one.
Project,
And the
yeah.
next thing was that he's been overdoing it on the push-ups, so he hurt
Yeah.
he hurt his left chest. And I was like sitting
Yes.
there at the table in the house, and we were talking, just like 2 days before. I mean, I get the precog stuff. I still
There-
do
Yeah,
today.
There is
Mhm,
a psychic component to the abduction phenomenon. It seems like
Yeah.
psychic people are targeted. And Stephen's
Yeah.
family are really ridiculous psychic. He's constantly reading my mind, constantly
Yeah,
pulling
yeah.
thoughts right out of my head to where I get irritated. It's like, stop that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But
My all the women in the family too were automatic writers.
yeah,
My
they're
mom,
Automatic writing.
psychics.
so my mom,
Wow.
my mom told me stuff. We could get into that next time. My mom
Yeah.
told me things. My mom told me things that there's no way she should have known.
Yeah.
That were
Yeah.
happening overseas. She just knew. She wrote it down.
Old Glegley was
well-
not just a caretaker, he was a communicator. It
Yeah.
seems
Yeah.
like the aliens, they pick a family and they take care of them to a certain
Yeah, yeah.
extent. but they also prey on
There's
them.
a relationship. There's got to be some type of genetic relationship. Yeah.
It sounds like they give you like certain like messages. They keep you safe. They like kind of give you like they'll like throw like thoughts and like put you on like the path you're supposed to be on, and then in turn they like take some of your genetic material or like they
it is very much like that.
It's like a give and take on like a very different. It's not like a physical level, or materialistic.
Like a parasitic, symbiotic reaction.
It's like where it's like a coexisting. Like that's interesting. I like that.
Yeah. It's funny because in Chinese medicine we call a male's energy called Jing, Jing, which is kind of like genie. But then we say, it's like we'll help you out because we like your Jing. We'll take your stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Well, this was wonderful. I do want to have you back. I want to kind of gestate on all this again. Then
there's a lot to
back.
Because
Thank you so much for having us.
We're gonna get the book, and I want to read the book, and then maybe come at you with some questions on the second half. Kind of touch that.
Even better.
Well, thank you so much, Leslie and Stephen Shaw. Again, the book, Who They Are and What They're Up to.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See you guys.
Wonderful.
Lovely meeting you guys.
Till next time.
Yeah, till next time. We'll be in touch.
Okay.
That was a great interview, wasn't it, Dawson?
Yeah, very nice. Very thought-provoking, bizarre stories.
So make sure to pick up their book, and then...
Yeah, get that book.
All I got to do here is just plug our own stuff. We're out of here. Basically, I need you to go to the Linktree link at the bottom in the description. I keep on saying at the bottom. I don't know if it's at the bottom.
It's down there.
You can follow all of our socials on there. You can, if you go to my Instagram, our Instagram, you can see Leslie Shaw's Instagram through there as well. If you want to just dig through, go ahead and go to pumpkinhillradio.etsy.com. Use code SECRET for 25% off orders of $25 or more. You're gonna find fun stuff like pins, prints. I got some spooky stuff there. Some haunted items, even a cursed object is there for you to pick up. Send us your scary story. I don't know, not your scary story. You can send us anything you want.
Yeah. Scary, weird.
Yeah, strange experiences to pumpkinhillradio@gmail.com.
Yeah,
and check out our partner Dubby.
Shouts out Dubby.
Dubby.gg. You can
code Star Mother.
Use code Star Mother for 10% off at checkout. I think that's all we got today, Dawson.
Yeah, that was a lot.
I have been Travis Wormwood. That's Dawson Trailer.
Yeah.
Thanks to our guests, and thanks for listening to Pumpkin Hill Radio. We'll see you next time.
I love you.